So basically, this idea for a game was established from a online learning environment that had come to my attention as having some flaws built into how it was using microservices. And because it was an educational tool, it would supply the user with a list of questions. And also in that API request was the answers. So all of the validation for if the user got the correct answer would happen in the user's browser. Now, this is a common problem and probably one that most of you are familiar with. So I really don't know if I should go too far into that topic other than just mentioning it. But I didn't want to directly call out that company, so I decided to come up with the next best thing, and Jeopardy provided me with a way of having that question and answer type of API call that I could make. And earlier this year, I had discovered that there's an online community of Jeopardy enthusiasts that have compiled a list of all the questions and answers from 30 years of Jeopardy, and even one person had put it into a public API that you could make requests to. Now, as I developed this, I realized that his API didn't quite meet the needs of what I wanted to create, and that kind of led me down the path of I need to basically create the full stack app, and I had to create the front end and all the microservice backend that would be powering it. And that's where I kind of fell short. I know I said in the introduction that web development has become easier now that web services and the new languages kind of help us create things, reusing of code and all those sorts of things, and we've talked about that a lot in this group also. And basically, as soon as I talked to Sujith and agreed to do this talk, I got really busy. I was hit with a bunch of life issues that I need to take care of, and just haven't been able to put the time into developing this app to the state that I wanted it to be in for this talk. So I do apologize for that. And hopefully this will garner enough feedback to motivate me enough to keep going with it and finish it and make this an app that is available. But anyway, I called it Ballyhoo because if you look up Ballyhoo in the dictionary, it's the dictionary meaning is a loud what do you call it? I forget the exact definition, but it was a loud display or something to bring notice to something. And so I thought it fit because, like I said, this was an issue that I found in the wild while researching a app that has like 300 million users. So definitely something that we as software developers should be aware of. So basically you would start a new game in Ballyhoo, and I've just recreated the Jeopardy game board. And I was playing around with different ideas on how to do scoring. Obviously, it would be more difficult to have 3 people connect at the same time and go around making this an actual multiplayer game. And I eventually decided to just make it a single player game because I wanted to demonstrate that API microservice vulnerability I feel of allowing the user to do client-side validation, and I didn't want to distract from that issue. So I kind of simplified it, just made it a single player, and you're kind of just racing against yourself. But I'm definitely interested to open to feedback on if you think this is a possible thing to turn into a multiple player game, because I don't think anything like this exists currently with Jeopardy. I mean, I know we'd have to get into different trademark issues, but anyway, it's a neat idea. So basically, when you click on new game, this was built with React. So the actual React code, I don't know if anyone's interested in seeing that.
Yeah, Robbie, why don't you just quickly show the different pieces there? Yeah, that'll be helpful.
Okay, I think I could show it right here in the developer tools.
And another question. So you said this is in state of development. Are you planning to share this on GitHub or anything like that, so people can look at it and contribute if they're interested?
Yeah, that was my original plan, was to get it out there and just make it a public project, so that everyone can learn from it. Yeah, if there's interest, I can definitely work towards that.
Yeah, I
So
think
the
if you're
actual
willing,
build,
yeah.
what, say it again?
Yeah, I think if you're willing to do that, and you can share the GitHub or link with me, and I can share it with everyone.
Okay. I would like to get some of the microservices built in to have that working. Right now, everything is kind of mocked. It's hard coded into you're going to get the same game board every time this loads. I I had to revert back to that just so I had something that I could demonstrate. But I could only work on this for the last 2 days, and that's definitely not enough time, as I found out, to get something of this magnitude up and going. Um, but yeah, the actual code to build the game board, it takes um, so this JSON file that is called categories represents what the JSON data that you would get from the API request, and it's just a list of categories and the clues. You'll have 5 clues for each category and 5 categories, and you'll see that they're the ones that are displayed across the top. It has a title, and then the 5 clues fall below that. And the next title, Extreme Animals, is the second one. And so I think everyone might be familiar with how the API calls work, and you pass JSON back and forth. But the piece I wanted to point out was they give you choices. Here, let me click on one. And so that would bring up the question. And then in typical Jeopardy fashion, you have a time limit on picking the correct answer. And you would have to select the correct answer, and you would gain the point value that is listed there. And the piece that stuck out to me, and the whole purpose of this talk, was you have the choices, and then it also gives you what the correct answer is. Maybe I could make that a little bigger. So for a human to do this, they don't know if they're selecting the right choice or not. But what stood out to me was this data that is retrieved from the API has to get saved somewhere in your browser in order for the functionality of the application to work. And that's what I kind of set out to explore, and found the React tools, developer tools. And I saw that everything was listed in the developer tools that I needed access to. So it gave me a listing of, here's all my categories. These are just the React elements that were there. Let's see. Okay, so you'll notice that I was just poking around, but you notice I happened to find the element that contains the data that exists on the screen on the left. And it has the answer, Charleston, and the question, and all the choices. And I wanted to look into how can I access that programmatically in order to essentially cheat at this game. Everybody else that's going to be playing this game is going to have to know the answers off the top of their head. But because I noticed that I was getting the correct answer from the API, I could get the correct answer every time. And so that's kind of what sparked this interest of why they create this game, Ballyhoo. And what I found out was, and everyone might be familiar with the DOM. You can do things like get elements, document get elements by ID or by class name or by tag name. And that's going to return an HTML collection or the element itself, depending on which one you choose. I think if I do get element by ID, and I forget what I named it. Answer, give it the class name answer. So, well, let me back up. So the way the DOM works is every element that appears in this HTML nested structure is what's known as the DOM, document object model. And they exist in a child-parent relationship, and also sibling. So if they're at the same level, they're siblings as these two divs. And game is the parent of these two siblings. So what I'm going to do is use the document.get element by ID or by class name for game, and that's going to give me a direct link to that element. And you see it returns a HTML collection with one element in it. And I can scroll down here, and it'll every piece of information that the browser knows about that element is accessible with JavaScript. So I can look at children that are nested directly inside it, which there's my two divs that we just saw. You can get to the sibling elements, and so on. I hope everyone is already kind of familiar with that concept. I think that's kind of built into how HTML works. But then I kind of went one step further as I was researching React and found that React puts this property called what was it? Well, I had it in my list. Well, there was one. I don't know if anybody saw it. Called the React root container, and it works the exact same way as the HTML parent-child relationship. So you'll remember when you create a React app, you have to have one element that is called the root element, and that is an index. And it says document that get element by ID root, and that's just some div that is named root in your HTML, and then React transpiles the React JS into HTML. So from JavaScript into HTML, and inserts it right there at the root element. And when you go to the console and ask for the React root container of the root element, you're getting a direct link to the React representation of, they actually call it the virtual DOM, which is, like I say, is akin to the regular HTML DOM. And you're allowed to do all the same things that you can do in the regular DOM. You can view the children. You can view siblings. And then what was especially interesting was you can get access to all those things we saw in the React developer tools, such as the state, which is anything that React uses to convert JavaScript into HTML is available from the React virtual DOM. Just by browsing through this virtual DOM tree. And again, I'm clicking on these arrows to kind of expand it. But the intention would be that you can automate all these different clicks of arrows. So once you find the element you're looking for, you can simply build a script and point to the node that you've already discovered. So once you find the node that has the piece of information you want, such as let's see, where was it? Game state. Once you find this element, which here you can right click it and even say inspect, or is it? No. So they have this little thing that says inspect the matching DOM element. So you see that is the actual game element from the DOM. View the source, and you see it takes me directly to the React source code that is being used to build the interface. So does that all kind of make sense? Does everyone see where I'm going with this?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay. And so the issue is if you give the user access, or if you give the user the ability to do client side validation, um, the pieces that it's being validated against have to exist somewhere in their browser. And if you're building your your application with something like React or Angular or Vue, I've looked into each of them, and they all call that virtual DOM a little something different, but it all exists there. And just look for this underscore. So do get element by ID and the name of your element, and look for the underscore methods that exist. And uh, that is how these web technologies are defining their data. And if the user interface has access to it, you also have access to it as a developer in JavaScript. And um, I had originally intended on going into how to build uh, a browser extension to kind of show a little bit of that process. But when I didn't get the rest of it working, I kind of didn't get that far as to build the extension. But so I hope you just take my word for it that you can automate this. I mean, I could. So once I find what this button is, you can do things like, so this is look for, I'm gonna do get element by class choice, and then I'm gonna select the first one. So document.get elements by class name, choice, and it's an array 0, and then you can do dots, and you see there that it's at the top of the list because it's a double underscore method that they call it the React event handlers and React internal instance. Well, you want the internal instance that is that React element. So, like I was saying, everything that you can do with the regular DOM also exists in the virtual DOM. So you can look at the different children, and you can step through the whole tree, the whole DOM tree, just using code. Once you find out where the information you're looking for is located. So all of this is available in JavaScript. So let me just kind of show you. So once you find what the correct answer was, you're gonna say choice, and then you just do the click event, and it's a function, and that's gonna okay. Why didn't that work? That should have worked. I don't know why it's undefined. But everyone's familiar with the click function of a button, right? So you can programmatically click on the user interface buttons. Once you perform the same logic in your browser extension, you then just interact with it using JavaScript. Hopefully I didn't lose anybody with that, but that's kind of the nature of this talk. I was hoping, like I said, I was hoping to get it more polished, and hopefully, that kind of got the points across um, on how you can manipulate a web application that uses microservices.
So the extension that you are planning to build, what was that for? To
Oh,
automate this?
that would be the piece. All this stuff I'm doing typing in the console, that would automate it. Once
Yeah.
once you find out where the correct answer lives in the virtual DOM, um, you can just look there all the time, because these questions and categories would repopulate based on be random from the API request. So you wouldn't know what the correct answer was, and they would appear randomly in the options list also. Now here I said option for both, but uh, these would appear in any order, so you would have to programmatically select which one was the correct answer, and that's the piece where I'm saying you can automate it with a browser extension.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. What were you
Um,
planning? Yeah, go ahead.
well, yeah, hopefully I get this more polished up, and as we get into sharing of the code, um, maybe we can look back at that again. Um, but the browser extensions is something that I've had a little bit more experience with. I just didn't actually get that far in this scenario. Um, but just like, let's see, just like if you have an extension up here, you can create your own extension. If you can write HTML or any HTML, JavaScript, CSS, you can create your own extension that would appear in this list up here.
Can you talk a little bit about the microservices that are backing up this game?
Well,
Like what do you?
currently there isn't one, but you would have one service that would supply the questions, and then you would need another that um, records the results, like the user score. And I was going to call it like a leaderboard, but that currently doesn't exist.
Right. So the problem with leaving the answer with the in the browser, so were you planning to use a different set type of microservice to solve that problem?
So that's I'm glad you asked, because I had not originally wanted to fix this issue in this talk, but I kind of wanted to leave it open to say how would you fix it. And all I can say is I know if you give the answer as in the same request, that's not the right way, because all the user has to do is explore their the virtual DOM, and they will be able to discover what the correct answer is.
Right. So I think Wyatt has a question in the chat.
Okay.
Are you able to see it? If not, I can just read it out.
Yeah, I'm not seeing
Okay.
where it's at.
Okay, so his question is, isn't the greater takeaway here that you should design your API with security and privacy in mind, and that keeping sensitive information like the answers in memory in the browser is a bad practice? I feel like the virtual DOM isn't necessarily the root of the problem here.
Right. That That's exactly right. You shouldn't design your app in such a way that you let all the logic be performed on the client side. You basically you would have to send every time the user makes a choice, that would have to make a request to the microservice to check that answer on the server and then return back if it was is correct or not. That would
And
be a better way of preventing this type of issue.
Yep, that makes sense. And that shipping the answers with the questions is probably not the greatest either.
Right. Well, like I say, this was something I found in the wild by a large learning application. So that's what initially led me to talk about it, because I couldn't believe it when I saw it, and I just wanted to kind of see what other developers would find interesting about it as well. So yeah, that's exactly the point I was trying to make.
Okay.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
and
Fair
I know
enough.
that the other thing that I recently ran into this issue where I couldn't, the app, like I was trying to sign up for something and the app was, the CSS was built in such a way that it was hiding one of the buttons that I had to press.
Right. Yep.
And like I could go in there and like change the CSS and so that it resized the window and showed me the button that I had to press. So
Exactly. And all those things, they keep the people that don't go looking into the inspector tools honest. But we should all know that anything that appears on the left side here, you can access from the right side in the browser tools.
right.
So
And I really like your idea about like building an extension that automatically does all this. So you don't, yeah, it's almost like it is playing. You just log in and let the extension do its thing. You don't even have to look at the game.
exactly. So once we do have the leaderboard built, it would be more apparent that why you need to automate it. But in this learning application, there were suspected people of cheating, because it's like, how do you get that many points that quickly? And no one could figure out how it was being done. And it's all over the forums where people are complaining about this. And this is something that's been around for like eight or more years. And the company had no intention of fixing it. And that's why I originally wanted to talk about their application, but I thought better of it, and that's when I decided I need to just go create something that was similar to it instead of using their exact application for this talk. But yeah, definitely look out for these types of things. Yeah, the hidden elements. All you have to do is it'd be visibility hidden, and now it's hidden. Or unhide it. That's a common thing. I've even seen it where for these endless scrolling applications, they'll put in something that has overflow is hidden. If this doesn't have any scrolling on it, but that's kind of a cheap trick to prevent the user from being able to scroll the page. And all they would have to do is come in here and say overflow, visible, right? Or just uncheck it. But anytime you say overflow hidden, yeah, it's going to prevent the user from scrolling like this does. But as soon as I uncheck it, now I can scroll it however much I like. And yeah, these just seem like kind of cheap tricks that software developers throw in there to prevent the regular users, but still doesn't make the application any more secure. So, but yeah. Can you think of any others that?
Yeah, I mean, I
But
wonder if you can even like change, like what you're doing with the extension, if you could actually have the CSS modified that it will highlight the answer.
yeah, that's actually the way I built the original app. Was there was one that was just full blown automation, and then another that was like if you just wanted a hint,
Right.
like you didn't want this all the time solve it, you just wanted to get a hint for something you didn't know. So yeah, definitely you can completely change the DOM from the browser extension. And like I said, I don't really have the demo prepared for that at the moment. But we'll just, you can delete the whole DOM and then just recreate it. So, um, just do something like document, oh, it's class name. Does that work? No. So you see, I just deleted the whole game by going up to the parent and then say remove child, and I gave it the reference to myself. So you can completely redesign the entire application with just JavaScript. And the easiest way to do that repeatedly is with a browser extension, because no one wants to sit here and type that every time they log into a page. And then refresh it, all that. So, yeah, I feel like we also almost need a whole topic on nothing but browser extensions, because that gets pretty in depth, and it's already 7:15. So I wasn't sure even how much of that to bring into this topic, but yeah, I appreciate everybody for being patient with me and kind of listening in on what I had to say. Hope you found it as interesting as I have. And yeah, look for the links. We'll get this out to some of the usual channels of code sharing.
Yeah. Does anyone have
hopefully,
any? Yeah, go ahead, Robbie.
No, I'm just going to say, hopefully we can keep building on this more and turn it into something that benefits the community.
Yeah, definitely. I think it would be a great thing to do. Does anyone have any questions, comments? All right. Thank you very much, Robbie. I know you really had to you are really stretched thin and you really had to go the extra mile to do this. And I really appreciate you doing that. And thank you very much, everyone, for attending. So do you have any last words, Robbie, or good to go?
No, I mean, yeah, just thanks everybody for your time, and look forward to talking to y'all in person once we all get back. And also, I didn't mention this before, but I was sad to hear about Alex Trebek gave up his fight with cancer a couple weeks ago. So that was kind of a letdown. Seeing how I was dealing with Jeopardy as well, to learn about that. But
yeah, I know you started working on this before all that happened, but yeah, definitely it's definitely a sad thing. But you know, I think this you can almost think of this as a tribute to that, to him, and if you kind of want
yeah,
to
exactly. That's why I wish, hope we can get to a better state. And
unless the copyright lawyers come after us, right? Then we may have to do something.
Well, that's what I'm wondering. How far could they get with copyrights? Because I mean, they probably could say you can't reuse their same questions and answers. But I don't know how much you can copyright a game board where there's point values and multiple choice questions.
Yeah, I think it'll mostly be around like the styling and all that stuff, right? So
right, yeah.
But you can always say this is not commercial, it's just educational.
Right.
I think if you're not trying to sell it, I doubt they would even care, really.
Well,
So.
yeah, and like I say, the community it's pretty active. Like they update, or they were updating after every show, and even the API that I was originally planning on using, he has links to other applications that are using his API. So, yeah, I mean, we can talk about it more as we get some of this built, but yeah, I guess probably the Slack channels. If is that probably the best way to share code, or would you do it on the Meetup channel?
Yeah, I think we can post it on the comment section in for this meetup. But I can also like share it through Twitter and we can also post it on the Slack, on the dev Slack. So yeah, all those options.
And yeah, I'm definitely looking for feedback on what's the best way to get this to the internet. I mean, you notice here I'm just hosting it on my local machine, just with the React server.
Yeah,
so
I think,
yeah, I'm definitely open to all that kind of feedback. So
yeah, let's chat about that offline. I think we might have some options there.
Okay. Well, yeah, that's all I have for right now.
All right, that was great. Thank you very much, Robbie and everyone else.